Okay, hello everyone, welcome back to this tutorial. In this tutorial, we want to find out how can we use OTP RTOS in STM32 Cube IDE. In previous part, I ported OTP RTOS to STM32 Cube IDE, but in this part, I want to do a simple project and I want to implement a simple project by using of RTOS. In this part, I wanted to blink a green LED on my board by using of RTOS. On my development board, ST microelectronic development board, there is a green LED and I want to blink this green LED each 500 milliseconds. Okay, but to implement this project, first we need to set GPIOI pin 1. This pin connected to LED. First, we need to set GPIOI pin 1 as an output pin in STM32 Cube. So, go to STM32 Cube and double click here. Okay? In pin configuration and tools, here you can find PI1. Set it as a GPIO output pin. Okay? And regenerate the project. Now the project is regenerated and PI1 set as an output pin. Okay? Let's do back to presentation. After that, you must add RTOS header file to your source code. RTOS header file. Okay, but what is RTOS header file? In main.c here, between user code begin includes and user code end includes, you must add your header file. You must add this header file. Sharp include RTOS include and RTOS dot h. If you want to use the RTOS, you must add this include file in your source file. RTOS include rtos.h. This header file. Open this project. RTOS include rtos.h. This header file. Okay. After adding RTOS header file to the source code, you must initialize RTOS by calling rtosInitialize function. The first function that you must call when you want to use the RTOS. Here in source file in main function. Here between user code begin to and end code begin to. You must call this function rtosInitialize. You must call this function before other functions in the RTOS. If you want to use RTOS, you must first call this function to initialize the RTOS. After that, you must create a thread. If you know what is thread, it's very good. But if you don't know what is thread, it's not important, don't worry. In this part, And next part, you will find out how you can use thread to implement your codes. How you can utilize thread to implement your codes and projects. Okay? But if you want to create a thread, first you must define a thread function and you must define a variable. Let's do this works. Another time in main.c. Here. Here. Between user code begin private variables and user code end private variables. First, you must define a variable. What's this variable? Thread ID. You must define a thread ID. It's important. For example, thread ID 1. For each thread, you must define this ID by using of this type. Okay? And after that, you must implement a thread function. First, you must define a thread function. In this way, you can define a thread function. A thread function is a void function. Select a name for thread function. For example, thread function 1. Write this line just like me. After that, you must write thread function parameter and parameter. Okay, define this line. It's a thread function. We will implement our codes in this function, and RTOS will run this function to do your works, to do your codes. What is parameters? At this time, it's not important. In next parts, I will say you what is parameters. Now, you must implement this function. Copy this function, go to the end of main.c, and here between user code begin 4 and user code end 4. Paste it here and implement this function. Write a while loop. An infinite while loop in the thread function. RTOS will run this function. Okay? After that, you must create thread by using a thread create new function. Let's do create the function, create the thread. After RTOS initialize, you can create your thread. Right, use this thread ID, this variable. Okay, and call this function to create your thread. Thread create new. To create a new thread, you need to select a name for thread. For example, thread 1. You need to write thread function pointer here. What is thread function pointer? The name of this function. Copy this name and paste it here. What is thread function parameter? At this time is not important. Put null here as a pointer. What is priority? In the next part I will say what's priority. At this time just write priority normal. What is the stack size? The stack size that the thread will use. Okay. For example, at this time, 256 kilobytes, 256 bytes. Okay. If you want to know what is a stack and a stack frame, you can go to my website. Open this project. You can go to my website. Go to the YouTube channel. Go to the playlist. In RTOS playlist. Here, I gave a lot of information about stack frame and thread stacks. Here, ARM subroutine function call, ARM function argument and stack frame, ARM local variable and stack frame. In these parts, you can find a lot of information about a stack frame of a function. Okay? But it's not important if you don't know what is a stack frame. Set this value, for example, 256 bytes if you have a simple stack. But if you have a complicated thread, for example, you can set this value to, for example, 8 kilobytes. Okay, but the RTOS will put this value to the heap. If you want to increase this value, you must increase the heap. But at this time, 256 is enough. Okay, so in this way you can create a thread. After that, implement thread function. In thread function, I want blink and LED. But if you want to implement a blinking LED, you need to have a delay function. You can use thread wait function to make delay in milliseconds. Okay, at this time in RTOS, if you want to make delay in milliseconds, you can use thread wait. But let's implement thread function. Here, thread function in while loop. I want to blink LED by using GPIO toggle pin, GPIO I and GPIO pin 1. Okay, in a while loop, toggle the GPIO pin, and after that create a delay. In running of thread fun or thread function 1. In this argument, you must write the ID of this thread. Okay? To create a delay in running of the thread. And in this argument, you must write the value of delay in milliseconds. Okay, in this way you can have a blinking LED, toggle LED. delay for 500 milliseconds, another time toggle LED. And after that, you must start RTOS by using up RTOS start function. After initialize and creating a thread, you must start the RTOS by using of this function, RTOS start. Okay, initialize the RTOS, create a thread, and start the RTOS. And RTOS will run this thread function because this is a thread. GPIO toggle, wait for 500 milliseconds, another time GPIO toggle. Now let's build the project. Now project has been created with no errors and no warnings. Okay, everything is okay. Now let's plug the board to the computer. Plug your board to the computer. After that, program your code by using a debugger, this ladybug button. Okay, click on this ladybug to write this code on the flash of your microcontroller. Okay, now I'm in debug mode, and if I start the code, the LED will start to blink. Let's start the code, and let's show you my board. Here is my board, and I have an blinking LED, green LED on my board. Okay, by using up the RTOS and one thread, just one thread, you can have an blinking LED on your board. Okay. Very good. Very good. Thank you very much to see me, and see you soon in the next part.